Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of Come Cloud with Us. My name is Abdul Kazi, and I have my co-host Chris Gale. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Going well, my friend. Going well. It's Thursday. It's Friday Eve, as we call it here, at least in upstate New York. So happy, excited, and ready to get the show on the road.
Yeah, yeah, and we have a very special guest today. So Simon Lee from the UK, and thanks, Simon, for coming in. I know it's
Yeah,
late;
no,
it's
thanks for having me, guys.
midnight already. So, but
Pretty much,
appreciate
yeah.
you
It's now
coming in.
Friday morning, so almost the weekend.
Well, that's
Right?
related quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Simon, talk to us about I know you're really into photography and cameragraphy and all those kind of things, right? So I know even coming before backstage, you were talking about that. So talk about us, how you got into IT, your background, you
Sure.
know.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Simon. I'm based out of the UK, as Abdul said. I've been in the IT game now for I think it's like just over 10 years. So I started off in the education sector, working through like various primary schools and secondary schools, which was a really cool and forgiving place to like learn like all the old school like Active Directory file servers and looking after printers and bits and pieces. And then kind of like leveled up from that and went from like being an on-prem like on-site person to then working in like a managed services like MSP style of things where you then do most things over like remote support and then do a couple of site visits and bits and pieces, and then kind of like progressed from there 3 years ago to going I've had enough of fixing people's like user profiles and printers and wanted to like try and progress more away from that into the Azure stuff. So yeah, joined Intercept and I've been doing like Azure stuff pretty much like ever since really.
Oh, and I just heard you say printers. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage, right? Everyone has to go through a phase of dealing with printers and setting them up and diagnosing them and swapping toner cartridges. So I know we've all been there and done that. You know, it's part
Fax
of the thing.
services. We can't have this talk without fax services. You know,
No,
the world
exactly.
wouldn't be the same.
True. And you'll be surprised, like even in Canada, I'm sure US and some part of UK, the public sector still uses fax machines for
Yeah.
like if you're in healthcare, they're like, yeah, fax this. I'm like, okay, don't have a fax machine. So yeah, we're still there. But talk to us about your cloud journey. What like because everybody has a different cloud journey. How did you get to the cloud? And I know you really specialize in Azure and what
Yeah,
kind. So talk to us about that.
sure. So my cloud journey kind of started through like social media and Twitter and
Mm.
like the whole cloud family thing, which is where I met Richard Hooper and Gregor Sutty, who I know that you guys know. And I met Richard through it was back in I think 2018 when like Microsoft were doing not Tech Ed, it was the one like the Tech Summit stuff where it was like at Birmingham and in London. And I kind of like met Richard through that, and we sort of like connected through social media and on LinkedIn, and we just kind of always kept in touch. And then, like I say, I was wanting like that move from doing printer support and bits and pieces to moving to the cloud, and I kind of like reached out to Richard and was like, "Hey, I've seen what you've been doing on socials, working at Intercept. It looks like a really cool thing, doing all stuff Azure, and we're just like an Azure only like CSP, so which was really nice. So I was like, here's my CV. Can you wave this in front of someone in front of HR and see where this goes?" And yeah, they took a gamble and gave me an interview. And during the interview process, so it was a standard like normal 2-stage interview. And I think during one of them, I said what I would really like is like a training program, because most of the stuff that I've done over the last 10 years or so has majoritively been self-taught with like building virtual machines and doing hours on YouTube and playing around in home labs. And they were like, yeah, okay, fine. So they then set up a third like informal call after I'd done the 2 interview ones to be like, if you accept this offer, here is a training program to go through like AZ900, AZ104, 500, and then 305. And there was a couple of like pay incentives, like the first 2 or 3 exams. And they're like, there's no pressure for you to do them. But if you want to do them, there is an incentive. And obviously, because they're an expert MSP company, we would benefit from that. And that was pretty much what sealed the deal for me, because they'd gone out of their way. They didn't have to set up this third call with me to go through it all. And that was like pretty much what sealed the deal. When I got that through via email going, here is basically a training plan all written out for you, I was like, yeah, done. And accepted it. And that was basically it. Yeah, 3 years ago. And then I started as a managed services engineer doing like break-fix stuff in Azure. And then like for the last year and a bit, I'm now doing Azure consultancy stuff. So it's now doing more like HLDs and low-level stuff. And yeah, doing more consultancy stuff than the break-fix stuff, which is, yeah, super cool. And I'm really enjoying it.
That's great. That's awesome. And then let's talk about your presentation. So,
Sure.
Yeah, we'll give you the floor then to talk about
Yeah.
your presentation.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Sure.
So yeah, this presentation kind of stems partly to go along with my cloud journey. So before I wrote this slide deck originally, I had a WordPress self-hosted blog, which was running inside of like a Ubuntu virtual machine, running on a server at home, running Hyper-V and all of this. And for that first part of my career, it was really good because I learned a lot about like server management, patch management, and then Nginx and all of this stuff. But what I found though was that as the blog became slightly more complex and with other things needing to be configured, what I found was that the management overhead was taking more and more time for making sure it was secure and updated and backed up. So I then started looking at other options. So yeah, going through the slide deck then, this is, yeah, all my social links if you want to follow me or connect up through social media. And then, yes, some of the reasons for why I initially started blogging from the WordPress side of things was it was more like an online wiki for when I've been trying stuff at home or was trying to diagnose and fix stuff. I could then have it as an online wiki and blog to help other people and to share back to the community. And also, if I then needed to go and look at stuff at a later date, I'd be like, oh yeah, I've blogged this, it's here. And then what I found later on was some of the stuff that I blogged was really helpful, and then other people started to look at it as well. So yeah, blogging is a really good way to like test your knowledge and to like share with the community. And from a platform perspective, there's loads of options out there. So yeah, for the next couple of slides, we're just going to go through and sort of give you a high level overview of some of the platforms that you might want to look at. And then we're going to go jump into a live demo of deploying a Hugo very basic site. So obviously WordPress is normally the go-to. It comes in two different flavors. There's the self-hosted version where you can download the zip files, deploy it to a server, install Nginx, PHP, and MySQL, and configure and look after that. Or if you want, you can use the WordPress.com version, which is the hosted version, which you can just pay for, and WordPress will look after all the back end for you, and you can just write all the content. Alternatively, I've seen some other people within like the community that I follow using Ghost, which is another CMS solution out there. And then there's obviously Medium, which I'm sure most people will have heard of, and is another alternative. And these are all like the premium sort of paid for versions. And then for the last couple, these are going to be like the free options. So you've got Hugo, which is it's classed as a static like generated website. So it's all written in Markdown, and you can just put Markdown in there with images and post it to pretty much anywhere online. So for the demo that we're going to do, it's going to be based on using an Azure Static Web App, but you can also host it on Netflix or in GitHub Pages. An alternative, if you don't want to use Hugo, for example, is you can use Jekyll. And yeah, these are some of the benefits of using Jekyll. But basically, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where you host the content or whatever platform it's hosted on. It's just the fact that you've got a platform somewhere with a brand and you're like writing content. And this finishes the slide deck. So what we're now going to do is we're going to go through and deploy a very basic static web app with Hugo. And this is going to cover pretty much setting everything up from creating the GitHub repository, so building the basic Hugo site, and then pushing the files to the static web app and then to GitHub. So the first thing we want to do then is we want to pre-create the GitHub repository that we're going to push the files to. So I've already got my GitHub organization set up, and we're just going to call this Static Web App Demo. You can leave the description like this for now as empty. We're going to leave this as a public repo, and then we can click create. So then once we've created this, we can then go and clone the site. So just before we clone the site, as you can see here, I've already installed some prerequisites that we need for this demo. VS Code, because it just makes life easier. PowerShell, because, yeah, it's just nicer to use. And then we've got Hugo, and then we've also got Git installed for being able to clone the Git repository. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new local folder that we can then clone this repository into, which is just git clone, and then we can paste the URL into here, and this will then clone the repo. Once you've restarted the terminal, for Git to load. So if we now go back to here and go to here and do git clone. Cool. So yeah, we've now cloned our empty repository as we've just created it. And then the next thing we want to do now is create a new Hugo website. So what we can do is we can use the following command here, which is Hugo new site, and then the directory path that we're going to use, and then -- force. Now, the reason why we need to use -- force is because normally when creating a Hugo website, it expects you to have an empty directory or an empty folder. However, because we've done the git clone, we've got the git folder inside of the static web app demo folder. So this basically overrides that and allows us to then create all the Hugo bits and pieces inside of there. So we've now got our site set up. So if we then navigate to the folder and then have a look in here, what we can see is this is the very basic overview of what you get when you deploy your new site. So what we can then do here is if you run Hugo server, it will then start the site and configure it, and you can see that the site is now running, and we can look at it locally. Which if we do here, you'll see that it says that there's no page found. Now you might be asking, why is it saying this? Well, this is because at the moment there is nothing configured and there's no theme. So if we look under the themes folder, you can see here that it's currently empty. So the way that we can fix this is if we stop the Hugo server from running locally, we can then clone in a default theme, which you can see here. For this demonstration, we're going to use the Bilberry theme. So while this just downloads the relevant files we need, if you are wanting to pick a different theme, because what I found when I was setting up my Hugo site initially was trying to find a theme is the hardest part, I think, of blogging after trying to write content. So if you go to themes.hugo.io, you can see here that you've got all various different themes to pick from. And then you can clone them in as a submodule and then configure it. So as you can see, we've now downloaded this. So the next thing, what we then need to do is open the directory in Visual Studio Code, and then we need to make some configuration changes to the hugo.toml file. So as you can see here at the moment, this is the default file you get out of the box with any site and any new Hugo setup that you create. And what we need to do is we need to add a new line in here to tell Hugo which theme that we're going to use. So it's the values which are set up as like a key value pair. So you have theme equals and then the theme name. And the theme name needs to match what's in the directory. So if you have a look in here, we've got the Bilberry Hugo theme, and then inside of here, there is v4, and then this is what's going to be used. So if we now try to do another check of the server, so we restart by using Hugo server, save the page first, and then try reload it. So you can now see here that we've got our default site set up. Then we might want to change the title, for example. So we can say like my demo static web app. And as you can see, at the moment, Hugo is still running. So if we save this in real time, it will then refresh and you can see the changes in real time. So once we've done this, you now want to start creating some content. And the way that we can do this is if we stop the Hugo server, we can use the following command. So it's Hugo new, and then you just specify the directory for where you want the new content to be, which would be under posts and then today's date, or by month, depending on how you want to do it, and then the title of what the post is going to be, which will be for this will just be welcome to my new blog. So as soon as you then hit enter on here, you can see here it says that the content has been created under content, post, and then the month, and then the markdown file. So looking inside of VS Code, if we go down to here, we can see that we have content, and then we can see in here that we have our new markdown file, which we can then put some content into. And then again, if we restart the server, it will now build the site and we will be able to see the new blog post here. So from like a development point, the Hugo site is now pretty much set up from a local perspective. If you want to then create any new posts or pages, you can do it locally. You can check it, make sure that you're all happy with it. Then the next thing we want to do is then push this back to the GitHub repository. And then what we can do is we can then move to Azure and then create the static web app and then do some final configuration. So to post the files back to the GitHub repository, we need to do git add and then do a wildcard because we want to add everything in there. We then want to do git commit new upload and then git push. So because this is obviously the first time that I've used Git inside of this virtual machine, we need to do some initial setup. And all this is doing is it just means that when you then post those files back to the GitHub repository, you can see who's created them. So for this, we can do Simon@demo.local, for example, and then we can say that my name is Simon. And then if we do git push, it should have then pushed it. Interesting. So it's missing, by the looks of it, the Git folder. Okay. So let's just check this. So we'll put this as bold. Then what we can do instead is we can come up here. We can do a fresh clone of the GitHub repository. And then I can copy this and then we'll try to post this. Okay, we'll do it this way instead then. Yes, I know why. Okay, we'll come back to this in a moment. So the next thing that we can do is we can look at creating the static web app. So to do this, we go to the Azure portal. We then search for static web app. And then we go through here. So we're going to put it into our resource group. We're going to call this static web app demo talk. For now, we're going to leave this as a free plan because it's for personal projects, and for the amount of data that's going through it, that's going to be fine. Then in terms of the repository, we can pick the built with Catherine repo. We can then pick the repository and then the branch. But before we can do the branch, we need to get this to upload the files. So bear with me 2 seconds while we get these files up there, and then we will get this sorted. Yep, cool. So they're all in there. Cool. There we go. So we'll just give that a minute to push the files up. And there we go. We can now see that we've now got a main branch. So if we refresh this, that's all cool. So if we restart this now, we can go through and we can set up the static web app. Select this to free, and then we come down to here, we select this, we then go to static demo, and then we choose this, and then we come down here, and you can see that it's already detected that we've got Hugo in here. So we can leave all of this and then continue. And for how we've got everything is in the root directory. So we can leave all this as default, and then we'll go through and create the static web app. So what this does is it deploys the Azure resource for the static web app. And what it then does at the same time is it then creates a GitHub action, which will then, as you can see here, it's now building, and it will then take the files from the GitHub repository and then push those into the static web app, which will take a minute or two. So from like a static web app point overview, if you've never seen it before, this is what it looks like. So you can see the basic URL, the source repository, the deployment history, the domain it's using, which you can currently see is like a default Azure URL, which we're going to change in a couple of minutes. And then, yeah, coming down the left-hand side, if you want to add your own custom domain that we're going to, once I've shown you some bits and pieces, once the initial deploy is completed, we'll add one into here. And then also, if you want to use staging slots, you can do this under environments. So if you want to preview what your static web app would look like, you can open a pull request, which will then show under the preview environments. And you can see here, at the moment, it's waiting for a deployment. So if we go back to the CI/CD pipeline, yeah. So what this error is saying is that there are some missing files from within the theme, because the Git submodule looks like it's missing something. So what we can do instead then is we can find the theme. And then what I will do is I will just download the zip for the actual theme, and then I will just put the files in there instead of using the submodule, and then we'll re-upload it. What I've initially found when I was doing the testing using the submodule stuff is sometimes it can be a little bit finicky. Sometimes it works great out of the box with no issues, and then sometimes it can do stuff like this. So probably the only real difference between what we're doing here and using the submodule is that using a submodule, it basically takes a copy of the Git repository. So if the theme owner ever updates any files, you will then basically get those latest files. Whereas doing it this way, where you download the zip and extract the files, it means that everything within that repo and that folder will always be the same. So if we come into here, we can go down to the example site, and then we can go to the themes, and then we'll copy it out. which is just this. So we'll grab this, we'll go back, and then we'll push these files up. So we'll go to here, and then we'll go into here, and then I'm going to remove all of this because we don't need the sub module now, and then we'll put all this in here. So if we now do a git add, it's going to say that there's lots of more files being added. We're then going to do upload theme, and then we're going to do git push. So this error message is because we've obviously now got the GitHub action, so we need to pull this back down to pull the changes, and then we can push the changes back. Cool. So that's now pushed. So if we go back up to the GitHub actions now, we can see that there's another job running, and we'll give that a minute or two to build. So while that's building, what we can do is we can go and configure our new custom domain that we want to use. So to configure this, what we can do is we can go add. So I've already got an existing DNS zone in here that we can use for this. So I'm going to choose the option for configure domain with Azure DNS. I'm then going to pick my Azure DNS zone, and then we're going to call this Hugo demo, for example. And because we're using Azure DNS, this will automatically go through and create. But you can see that I've used this already before when I was doing some testing earlier on. So what we first need to do then is go to the DNS zones, go to here, and then you will see the existing DNS record from the demo I did last time. And then we can remove this first. And then we will now go back and we'll recreate it, and it will go through. So we do this, and then we select this, and then go add. And this will take a couple of minutes for it to go through and validate. And what it basically does is, as you saw, it'll create a CNAME record. We can then set that CNAME record to be the default domain. And then there's some configuration changes that we need to do within the Hugo site locally to make sure that the URLs match. Otherwise, because it's obviously using SSL certificates, it will then break. So while this is running, let's check this. Why is the theme broken again? Oh, this is because it's looking for the submodule. Okay, so we need to go back to here then, and then under GitHub. And then in here, there is a submodule that we need to remove. Bear with me 2 secs, guys, just while I work out where the submodule config file is, and then we will remove it. So in here. let's try and see if this fixes it. Yeah, we know that. Oh, because it needs to go all the way around, yeah. So this is going to reclone the sub module, and then if we do this, we'll fix that. Cool. So that's the site now working all locally. And then we will resubmit this. And then we'll let that build. So while that's building, what we can see here is that the new domain that we've created is now here. So to set this as the default domain to be able to be accessed, we can do this. So it then changes the default domain from the Azure Static Apps to our new custom domain. And like I was saying, what we now need to do is go back to the VS Code window, and we need to update the hugo.toml file in here to update the base URL to then to reflect the custom URL that we're using. Otherwise, like I say, when you try and access the website, it will then fail and give you a certificate mismatch and say that the site's not working. So now we've done that, we can re-push this. We'll do custom domain added. And then we will wait for the demo site to rebuild. Which, like I say, will take a couple of minutes, and then we can see if the site's there. So if we check this next build, it's failed again because it's missing rendered page file. Okay, let's do some diagnostics then. So it says in here under themes, under here, under v4, then under layouts, then under default, and under base of. And then here under default and layouts, partials and CSS. Okay, this looks like this theme might be a little bit broken. Okay, we will find a new theme to test then. So if we pick, say, the stack theme, for example, and then we can go download. What we'll do for this one is we will download the zip. And then, yeah, following through the documentation, we can look at the getting started guide. And as you can see here, so it says that instead of using the submodule, we can just clone it straight in. So being from inside this default directory, we can copy the theme, we can paste this in. And doing it this way, what it means is that it basically downloads all the content files rather than trying to like slipstream them in. We then need to update the theme to be the Hugo stack theme. Great. So if we save this and then check this now. Yeah, so we can see that we've got our default site there. So we can now do this and go change theme. And then, yeah, this goes back and pushes again back to GitHub, and it will then trigger the new GitHub action. Which, yeah, normally takes, depending on how many files are in there, a couple of minutes. Interesting. I don't see an error, though. Let's see if it will rerun. So yeah, what this step basically does is it copies all the contents from the GitHub repository and then pushes it to the static web app. But for some reason, it's not liking the fact that there's something cached inside of here. Okay, so cool. So that's now pushed. Now let's see if this builds. Okay, I'm not 100% sure why that's not wanting to build, but what I can do though is show you what it should look like once it has successfully built. So yeah, this is currently like my actual live blog at the moment, which is all built through Hugo. So this is what it would look like once, yeah, you've pushed a successful site to it. So if I show you what the actual repository looks like, if we go into here and then go down to the static web app. So yeah, this is the production static web app I've got. And as you can see here, this has got all the folder structure in, along with, yeah, the GitHub actions. And this is what a successful build would look like. So it goes through, it builds the site, tells you how many pages and files and artifacts are in there. and then pushes it to the static web app, and then you can access the website. So live demos are always fun when you're doing them, but that basically kind of concludes the session.
Amazing. That was really good. Oh, you're on mute, Chris.
Oh, how dare I leave myself on mute? I hit the button and I still did it. Man. Well, cool. I took maybe some of the heat away from live demo. So, put yourself on mute during a live stream. Great. Good job. No, seriously. Just applaud your efforts. I always say, doing live stuff is not easy, but, you work through it, figured it out, and made it work. So, but yeah, good stuff. Great demo. Great approach to this. So, appreciate that, Simon.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys.
Yeah, this was great because honestly, like, I get nervous doing live demos, but kudos to you, right? Like, and just troubleshooting and stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Do you know what's more annoying though? Obviously, when we all do live demos, I have like a whole crib sheet next to me of copy this, copy this, copy this, copy this, copy this, copy this, because it's a live demo, and I've literally copied it, and for some reason it's blown up tonight. So But like you
I was
say,
gonna say, part of me is worried because I know in the past I think we had someone else who had come and done some stuff with like GitHub Actions, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I pull up the status page and GitHub Actions, and it's like down, not working. I'm like,
no.
So like private chat, we may want to just move on. So I did the same thing tonight. I'm like, okay, no, he's good. It should be fine.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So I was looking at, opportunity if anybody's tuned in and want to ask any questions. It looks like you might have one of your cohorts or friends out there that was giving you a hard time, Simon. So looks like Boris is chirping at you a little bit. So, but good stuff. Again, any questions, please send them in. Now's the time. Otherwise, we'll look to start wrapping up. But any other like tips, tricks, anything that you want to share with folks while you have the mic and the stage?
Yeah, sure. I think for the most part, like social media, like it's a good and a bad thing, isn't it? Like I know social media on the whole gets a really bad rap for stuff, but if you use it the right way, like I've met you guys, I've met most of like Richard and Gregor and people, and like loads of like the Cloud family people all through Twitter and social media and stuff and LinkedIn. And like, it's really worked. And we've got a really good like community of people, like we were saying earlier before we went live about like going out to Ignite and we plan a load of stuff in. So it's good. So if you're not on Twitter or X or whatever it's now going to be called, you should sign up. It's good.
Awesome. No, that's a good one. Yeah, and I just now that we are kind of going through this, I know there's a lot of like community events stuff. Anything in particular that you're looking forward to, Simon, as we move here in the next month or two?
Yeah. So I know there's Experts Live Europe happening. In fact, it's happening now, I think, this week, over in Budapest, which looks really, really cool. Then there's obviously Ignite coming up in November. Which is going to be like Ignite for me this year is going to be a really special one because it's the first time I've ever been to America. And I'm going with a load of questionable work people, which is going to be great fun. And then it so happens coincidentally that week as well, I'm also going to turn 30 on the 21st of November. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a really, really fun week with some brilliant people. And I can't wait, man. It's going to be really good fun.
That really puts like way more meaning into our backstage conversation right before we started. But no, that's great. Great to hear that you're coming to the US. It'll be a good time. So we'll show you around. We'll show and tell, meet some great people. I can't wait to meet you in person. So.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Awesome. All right. I don't see any other questions coming in. Abdul, any parting thoughts? Any other questions you might have for Simon?
No, just thank you, Simon. I know it's late for you, so it's
Yeah.
past
Yeah.
midnight. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming here, and then yeah, always welcome again. Because
Yeah, definitely. If you'll
but
have
yeah,
me back, I'll fix the demo and I'll come do like the rerun version 2 where it goes with the actual debugging of what went wrong from tonight. So you can splice it together and go, he tried, he failed, he fixed it. Here's the post-mortem.
See, no, what you did was you put out a challenge for all the viewers and stuff. So if somebody can figure this out, come back and post it. Maybe
Yeah.
we can send out
In
some,
fact, because
shots to
Boris
you or
is watching,
something.
so here's my gauntlet to you, Boris. You've got the errors, go and fix it and build a site and tell me how you fixed it.
Brilliant. I love it. Well, on that note, folks, this is a fantastic session. Thank you again, Simon. Thanks, Abdul. Thank you, viewers. We
Yeah.
appreciate you as always. If you like the content, I know you do. You keep coming back. Smash that subscribe and tell everybody you know. Until next time, we'll see you. Come cloud with us. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, all. Bye.
Thanks, guys. See you later.